Thank you, Tara. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Good evening, Chairman.
Welcome to this evening's meeting of the South Eastern Area Planning Committee. Most of you know Derek Lawrence, I think, but for those of you who don't, he's been here before and he decided we needed controlling, so he's come back again.
Thank you, Chair.
Point over the worst stuff. So can we refer to him as Jackie Weaver, Mr. Chairman, for the rest of the evening?
Sorry?
We refer to him as Jackie Weaver for the rest of the evening.
Oh, that sounds a familiar name.
Yeah.
Agenda item 1, Chairman's notices. There are 2 notices, recording of the meeting. Please note that the Council will be recording and publishing on the Council's website any part of this meeting held in open session. And the second part is fire. In the event of a fire, officers will notify those present, if you haven't already found out for yourselves. Please use the fire exit at the back of the room and out the door, marked with the green running man. The fire assembly point is Barclays Bank car park. Please gather there and await further instruction. Agenda item 2, apologies for absence. I know Councillor Beale.
And Councillor Skeens, Chairman, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tara.
Councillor Skeens, Chairman, thank
Agenda item 3, minutes of the last meeting. Pages 7 to 14. Has anybody got any questions or clarifications? Are all happy?
Yeah.
Thank you. Agenda item 4, disclosure of interest. To disclose the existence and nature of any disclosable pecuniary interests, other registrable interests and non-registrable interests relating to items of business on the agenda, having regard to paragraph 9 and appendix B of the Code of Conduct for members. Members are reminded that they are also required to disclose any such interests as soon as they become aware, should the need arise throughout the meeting. And I will declare interest in knowing the applicant of agenda item 6.
Do we get a dispensation, Chair?
Everybody's going to say the same. Right, okay, that's simple, thank you. Agenda item...
Chairman, sorry, I've got a discussion.
Yeah, you.
You've got the yes, please.
Yeah. Thank
Sorry.
you very much. Item 6, Chairman, I've got a disclosable pecuniary interest, and therefore I shall not take part. I'll leave the chamber after item 5, and I think we've already arranged where you'll meet me.
He's not coming back.
We have to support the nighttime economy.
Agenda items 5 and 6, I believe the officer presenting it will be Lisa Greenwood, who's doing it remotely, with support from Derek as we need it. And also apparently we've got there Sean Jones, who's going to be a new committee clerk for us at some stage. So. Right, agenda item 5, the Ridings, Burnham Road, Latchington, Essex. It's a retention of a dwelling as built, so it's one after the event. Detached garage and associated works, and the reason it's here is a departure from the local plan 2017 with a recommendation to approve. Lisa, not present.
you. Okay, thank you, Chair.
When are you ready?
The application site is located on the southern side of Burnham Road, outside of the settlement boundary of Latchington. The site comprises of a single-storey dwelling, detached garage, and large area of hard standing at the frontage, all of which
Oh,
Hold on. What's Chairman? This remote idea
Yeah.
is not a very good one, is it?
it's been fine.
Have you got the necessary? Hello.
to approve Act 5.
Hello, you're there. Lisa, I think you better go back to the beginning and start again.
Hello, can you hear us?
Hello, can you? Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
you can now. Go back to the beginning and start again.
Okay. The application site is located on the southern side of Burnham Road, outside of the settlement boundary of Latchington. The site comprises a single-storey dwelling, detached garage, and large area of hard standing at the frontage, all of which are the subject of this application. The site is named to discharged and the permission is no longer considered to be extant. The conditions seeking approval relate to drainage, parking and boundary treatments. It should be noted that the external design and footprint of the bungalow is identical to that of the approved dwelling. It is 16.5 metres wide and has a maximum depth of 11 metres. It measures 5.5 metres in height and is finished in brick and tile. The access is located to the north-eastern corner of the site. The changes, as set out at paragraph 3.1.6 of the officer's report, are summarised as follows. The curtilage has increased in width from 29 metres to 36 metres in width. Details for the drainage of the site are located to the east of the dwelling, outside of the residential curtilage. The original application was for a 3-bedroom bungalow, and this is a 2-bedroom bungalow. The bungalow has been constructed using a slightly different boundary line, slightly further east and further from the neighbouring Red Lions Lodge. The current application includes a garage, hard standing to the front and around the dwelling and associated works. Although the 2016 permission is no longer extant, it is not considered that there are changes to the dwelling, to the site or policy that are significant enough to alter the stance taken to the previous application. It should be noted that the 2016 application was recommended for approval by officers and the planning committee. This application follows a previous application at the site from January 2013, which was recommended for refusal by officers but granted permission by the committee. It is not considered that the alterations have resulted in demonstrable harm to the character and appearance of the countryside, which would have justified a reason for refusal. A significant area of hard standing, however, has been built at the site, surrounding the dwelling and extending significantly onto the site, particularly the frontage and the eastern section. However, it is considered that subject to an appropriate condition, reducing the hard standing and ensuring that appropriate landscaping is achieved, the development would not result in any significant harm to the landscape and character of the area. There have been no technical or neighbour objections to proceed, and it is therefore recommended that, subject to the imposition of conditions, the planning permission is granted. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. We have no public speakers on this one, so ward members.
No problem with the recommendation, Chairman.
Councillor Fluker?
Thank you, Chairman. I wonder if the officer can just confirm whether or not this, excuse me, hard standing at the front is permeable, if that's the right word, and also going back to, if we could just have the site plan up. I think you've got an attenuation pond or, that's the one. So, it says drainage something or other.
Basin.
So, basin. So that actual basin falls within the curtilage of this application. Sorry, that's,
Yes.
so there's two questions.
The drainage, yes, the drainage falls within the curtilage, but not what we would class as the residential curtilage as such. So it's within the land owned by the applicant, but we wouldn't necessarily class that as residential curtilage. But we can tie the drainage to the bungalow, so we can have a condition on there if needed.
And do we know if the drainage basin is sufficient for just one building?
Yes, I don't think there are any issues with the drainage.
So it looks so you've got it looks like where your cursor was, you've got sort of a Clargester system, and then that's going into a drainage basin. Would that be correct? Where the round circle is.
Yeah.
So you've got a treatment plant going into a drainage basin. My understanding that Clargesters had to go into a ditch of running water, or if not, into the head of the ditch. But that might be something that's building regulations and need to be confirmed. But my understanding is, and I've been involved in a lot of Clargester installations, and then the one on the permeability of the surface of the car parking. I wonder if we can have an answer on that, Ms Greenwood.
The hard standing, whether or not the hard standing is permeable, I don't believe that all sections are permeable. However, we are looking to have the hard standing reduced. So I think in our mind, this isn't the finished article, and we are proposing a condition whereby the applicant is going to have to apply for the correct amount and type of hard standing that we would deem acceptable, because at the moment we just feel it's far too extensive, and it wasn't approved as part of the original application. So we have sought, to be honest, further details on this, because this is something that's going to be subject to change.
Well, Chairman, I'm sorry, just a point of clarity. If the officer doesn't support the amount of hard standing that's brought forward on the application, then surely that's a reason for the officers to recommend refusal, because I don't see how you can condition it by saying it's got to be reduced. I mean, I think Mr. Lawrence is chomping at the bit.
We can impose a condition because, as the officer has explained, at the moment, as it stands, there is no planning permission.
Right.
It's a retrospective, so we are considering it in its entirety.
I mean, this is a slightly new one to me, because you've got something that's already there, which the officers in their report. Globally, you're saying the officers support the application. But now we hear that the officers want to reduce the amount of hard standing, and one hopes that through that, I don't know how you can condition that, but then that would then mean that it would have to be permanent.
It can be controlled by a condition. Obviously, what it will do, as I understand it, the existing hard standing is a non-permeable surface. It's this, I think it's gravels, it's sit in a kind of bitumen, so obviously it does have a fairly impermeability, but what we are seeking to achieve is by reducing the amount of the area that will assist in any runoff of surface water from the site.
My only concern is that, and I've seen it myself when someone contacted me today, is that we do get runoff from the site into the road outside. But so can the officer please show us the extent of the hard standing now and what the officers are going to propose to the applicant?
This is the extent of the hard standing now that you can see on the photographs taken by Vicky, who was the case officer. And then if I just flick up, then you can see here the map which shows the hard standing there.
So I'm sorry, Chairman, through you. So we don't that plan there is proposed by the officer, or is that as it is now?
No, so this is as it is now. So what they've had to do, because they haven't built the house, well, they haven't built the hard standing, etc., in accordance with the approved plans, they've had to come in with a retrospective application for the entire site for us to assess. We don't feel that the bungalow, I mean, there are no real changes to the bungalow at all. We don't feel that it deems a reason for refusal, as we're comfortable with the fact that we've spoken with another trust in enforcement that we can do this, that we can achieve a smaller area of hard standing. So what we've looked to is for them to come back with something more reasonable for us to consider and approve, and we then have the flexibility that we can ask them to make changes to that as well, and we'll be working with the enforcement team to do so.
And can you just tell us what the timelines are likely to be for that, bearing in mind where we are with enforcement?
We have imposed a timeline in terms of the condition. If you look in the report, it does refer to a timeline in which they would have to submit those details. They'd have to submit them for our consideration and approval, and then if they weren't submitted in that time, then effectively there would not be a planning permission, and after that period we would then look to seek to take enforcement action.
Okay, so I can see in the conditions it's quite robust, but I think it would have been helpful to have a plan of what's there now and what the council is proposing. But if the officers are content that we can control this by condition,
yes,
I'd certainly support the ward members' recommendation to.
I can confirm we can control it. It's a robust condition.
Yeah. You're being kind. I didn't read it properly.
Oh, don't say that.
You'll be in terrible trouble. Councillor Helm and then Councillor Mrs Stamp.
My question's already been answered, because I was going to inquire, if they don't do it, just leaves it is, what happens? You can take enforcement with 11 months. Is that right?
Yes.
Right, okay.
Councillor Mrs Stamp.
Can it not be strengthened, the last sentence on condition 1 then, because Councillor Lucas made excellent points about it being permeable. I've read it and I can't see the word impermeable. Can that not just be strengthened in there so it is going to be permeable of its current standards or new
We
climate
do have
standards?
the ability to amend the conditions such
Yeah.
that it would be a permanent. The alternative that they do adopt is where you have the non-permeable surface, normally there is like a gully
Yeah.
where it's adjacent to the highway,
And it goes in.
that it takes the rainfall off into that. That would be, shall I say, a more appropriate solution, that they could install just one of these cast iron gullies across the actual vehicular access.
As long as they keep it clean.
Yes.
Because once that gets up, all it does is run off. I don't mind if it's not, but you know, it just strengthens what Councillor Fluker said. I've got a question, just in general, being as now we've got Mr Lawrence here, and about curtilage. I can remember sitting in this chamber when Mengap's Manor wanted to build a garage to put his cars, and it was outside the curtilage, and we had murders here, didn't we? It got refused, and then we had everything else. And it just seems to me that this application is not built within the curtilage, and it seems to be okay. And what concerns me, and I'm preempting if I get an email tomorrow morning in my inbox saying why wasn't queried, and that's been allowed to stand when the other didn't. It actually, I can't remember eventually if it was approved, but there was a lot of difficulty about it being outside the curtilage. So can I have some explanation
when we
why
talk,
this one
yes,
would be
when we talk
and
of
that one wouldn't
residential,
be?
sorry, when we talk
Thank
of
you.
residential curtilage, it's normally that area immediately around the property. We do have the cases where some people say it's within the curtilage, but it's the area which is immediately adjacent to the building. But what they have done is included the drainage within the overall application site, so it is controllable. But that's what curtilage means. It's what you would normally assume with the garden,
Yeah.
and it's what is reasonable. There's no precise definition of what is a curtilage. It's a matter of, shall I say, fact and degree of what constitutes a curtilage. But it's normally that area which is immediately adjacent to the property.
The planning department wish it to be as small as possible. The applicant wishes it to be
As
as
big
big
as
as possible.
possible.
So you end up with a compromise somewhere in the middle of all of that.
Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor
John,
Freeman.
can I just come back and seek some advice, because I've just looked at installation guidelines for Clargesters. I see Environmental Health don't have any objection, but the Environment Agency aren't involved in this, so I did wonder whether or not we can have a condition that satisfies the installation without going into what's not running water in a pond, because I know every single Clargester sales rep will say to you that you can drink the water as it comes out of Clargester.
After
I've
you
not
with the
got one
glass.
to do it. I haven't seen one do it yet. But when they go wrong, it's catastrophic, and having it all going into a pond, which is basically surrounded by houses. So I do wonder if it's possible to have some kind of condition on there, because the Environment Agency haven't responded to this, but Environmental Health have.
I think that's an existing situation with the Clargester. I think what the new part is that they've provided the drainage, as you've seen in the diagram, which is, that's the area adjacent to the site. I think the Clargester, that was an existing installation installed with the property.
But I don't remember it discharging into a new pond.
I mean, obviously that's something we've, in terms of the technical details, we've consulted the Environmental Health Department. They are our advisors. If there was any pollution implications, bearing in mind the size of the site, it's not something which we would normally consult the Environment Agency, but the Environmental Health Officer is satisfied that what they have installed is acceptable.
But Chairman, I only queried it because I know in the past applications have been turned down where it's impossible to connect to the main sewage system, and you can't install anything else other than a septic tank, because there's nowhere for a Clargester to discharge into. So, you know, if Environmental Health are happy, they're happy, but I'm just a tad concerned about it. That's all.
Councillor Boyce.
I'm rather surprised about Clargesters being used on this site, because there are main sewages right outside the front door.
Connected to main street, it says on the report. Doesn't it say that? I'm sure I read it.
Well,
Have I read it wrong?
are we all not a little bit confused here? And that drainage basin is just dealing with surface water, but it does, the way the drawing is drawn, I can't read what it says next to the circle, but normally that's how a car jester would be shown on the drawing.
It does say it's connected to the main plan. 5.71.
Lisa, can you just clarify the whiting which is adjacent to the larger circle, please?
Smaller circle. I don't know.
Is it smaller
I
circle?
think what I might have to do is actually open the plans to do so, because it's not coming through very clearly.
Surface water is dealt by so away. No objections been raised by council to Bramham Department.
If you bear with me, I can have a look on the system and see if I can expand it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, 5.71.
Storm drainage and
It
foul
does, yes,
drainage.
that's what
I think, Chairman, someone's pointed out paragraph 5.7 says it's not connected, so one presumes that is a car jester. Or it's a treatment.
It is connected to Councillor Pluto.
No, it does say it's connected to the main foul drainage. Mains foul drainage. A surface water drainage report has been submitted and surface water is dealt with by a soakaway.
Yes, that would
So,
be fine.
Rewind.
okay.
Regarding the garage, there's a single garage
Yes.
constructed at the back. Is that the plan indicating the correct size of it? Because the property I'm thinking of,
Yeah.
there seems to be a significant building to the, on the western side, if it's what I'm thinking of.
It's a new
And
garage.
it doesn't seem to marry with what might be on the plan. So I just asked that question, and is in brick and red tile. It seems quite a significant building and a single garage. So I
Yes,
just wondered.
Yes, it is just a single garage because as it's a two-bedroom property, in terms of the car parking requirements, only a single garage is required. But equally, there is space on the hard standing for any visitors' cars.
Yeah, it seems a big structure for a single garage. I think it's one if it's the property I'm
It's
thinking
bigger
of.
than, you say it's bigger than what's actually.
Yeah, it looks to me, well, yes, when I see it, it's going past, but that might just be the perceptions I go by.
I'll move the recommendation with you.
Whatever. Right, recommendation to approve. Everybody happy with that? Please show. Yes, right. That's agreed. Thank
You're
you.
the pub. Well, we're not allowed in your pub, it's the con club. Oh, we go. Oh, thank you. What? Nothing.
Tara, please note, Councillor Fluker has left the room. Agenda item 6, the wheat barn, Keelings Road, Dengie, says Southminster, but it's Dengie, Southminster. Construction of garden produce and garden equipment store on existing concrete base. Reason for referral to this committee is that the applicant is a councillor with a recommendation to approve subject to the conditions as detailed in section 8 of this report. Lisa, please present.
Thank you, Chair. The application site is located to the north of Keelings Road, the north-east of the settlement of Southminster and to the south-east of the settlement of Dengie. The site benefits from a large and elongated plot and comprises the wheat barn, a Grade 2 listed building, one annex, one cart lodge and workshop, one oil tank and one pond. The wheat barn is an early example of a brick barn built in the Waltham district. Following its designation in 1986, the barn was converted to a dwelling. The site is near to a number of heritage assets. To the north and east is open countryside and the character of the site is rural. Planning permission is sought for the construction of garden, produce and garden equipment store to be sited on top of an existing concrete base. Paragraph 3.1.4 of the officer's report sets out the specifications for the store, which is proposed to measure 5 metres in depth, 9.1 metres in width and 4 metres in height to the ridge of a hitch roof, which is 2.7 metres to the eaves. The store will be constructed with a corrugated sheet roof, timber weatherboarding painted black, and will have a half-glazed timber door, and 6 metres of the front elevation will remain open to allow access. As stated, the wheat barn is a Grade 2 listed building and there are a number of heritage assets within close proximity of the site. As such, the proposal has been reviewed by the Council's Conservation Officer, who has noted that the proposed outbuilding would pose no conflict with policy D3 of the Local Development Plan, nor the National Planning Policy Framework, or Section 66(1) of the Planning, Listed Buildings and Conservation Areas Act 1990. The building will be partially screened by existing hedges, and as the site benefits from a generous plot, the outbuilding would not appear large in relation to the existing barn. It would also not detract from any important views or from the listed building itself. There have been no neighbour or technical objections received, and it is therefore recommended that, subject to a condition regarding materials, planning permission is granted.
Okay, thank you very much. As board member, I have no further comment to make on it. Any other members?
Move the recommendation, Chairman.
Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you very much. Agenda item 6 agreed. Agenda item 7, any other items of business that the chairman of the committee decides are urgent? I have none, so I will close the meeting at 7:56. Thank you, members.
That time early.